Please stop making brownies from a box.
No! I'm sorry, but it's easy. And I'm stupid.
This video is brought to you by my YouTube channel, which is incredibly new and inconsistent visually. There's no branding. This banner is old. I don't know what it's of. It's also brought to you by YouTube putting ads on my videos and me not being able to get any money from those ads because I am not eligible for monetization. So YouTube can still put ads on my videos, but I just don't get anything for it. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use photos and a loose sketch to create an awesome concept art image. I usually start with a single photo that has something in it that inspires me. I roughly cut out the parts that I want using the lasso tool and then set them aside while I clean up the sketch. This sketch was made for a different video where I explained the importance of atmospheric perspective, and I'll leave a link to that video in the description. When I'm making the sketch, I'm focusing on blocking out the composition and the shape design of the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. Blocking out these shapes early will make the photo bashing a lot easier later on. Then I start gathering photos that I might use. I'm dragging in things of all shapes and sizes. I'm also looking for images that can imply some kind of story. After I get what I want, I start cutting and pasting. Sometimes I'll reuse the same texture multiple times just by mirroring and stretching it. I really like this car and thought the silhouette was perfect to sit right in the foreground. Once I feel like the foreground is in a good spot, I move on to the middle ground and start repeating the process. A lot of what I think about when photo bashing is I'm mostly looking for textures and implied detail. So for example, a pile of wood can also be a cracked ground. I then move on to the background, which is the focus of my painting. It's what the character in this story is looking at and what I want the audience to be looking at as well. I use a combination of the marquee tool and a square brush to block in some basic building shapes to get an idea of where I want the city to extend to. And then I just start dropping in the photos I cut out earlier, doing a little bit of color matching and blending here and there. After I get the main elements laid out in the foreground, in the middle ground, and the background, that's when the bulk of the photo bashing is done. Now comes kind of the fun and creative part, and I start developing the story that I established for myself earlier. So for example, in this story, it's a Fallout post-apocalyptic town, and I'm gonna start adding elements that tell that story, such as ropes and wires, and maybe they are a way for them to move cargo from and to other buildings, or maybe they're just some type of last-ditch effort to save the buildings from falling over. I didn't really like how empty and gray the sky was, so I dropped in some gradients of blue just to give it a bit more life, and also I pumped up the saturation of the ground to really enhance that rusty red color from all the abandoned cars that are sitting on it. Paint in some low foggy clouds, and then I thought it would be cool to have some smoke that goes up from the city into the sky and kind of makes it look like it's polluted. This smoke activity also implies like human civilization, and that implies that humans are living there and there's some kind of activity going on there. The smoke trails are just like a visual direction that guide the viewer into looking at the city. At this point, I feel like the image is mostly done, but I wanted to add one more element to really solidify the story. I drop in a human figure and I paint them up to look a bit more like a traveler with that iconic staff that we love to add to paintings like this. This also adds a bit of narrative relationship between the human activity in the city and the person standing there. So maybe they're contemplating heading towards the city and they're not sure if people live there or not, and the smoke is giving them some type of idea. Or maybe they just ran away from some chaos, some abrupt chaos that broke out, and all that smoke is implying some type of like wreckage. And so maybe they just got out and they're looking one last look back. I want to recommend a few places to look for photos for photo bashing. Flickr and Google are really great because you can filter by commercial free or royalty free photos. Photobash.co is a website dedicated to creating these like photo bash packs. DeviantArt is another great place for photo packs and reference packs, things like that. And then also personal photos. I take a lot of photos when I go on trips because I know I'm going to be photo bashing them. So I'm taking pictures of mountains and people and all these kinds of like random things that I always need photos for when photo bashing. You want to focus on having an idea of what the final image is going to look like before you start photo bashing. Otherwise, you'll just scroll forever looking for stuff. I also recommend learning a bit about composition and shape design. It doesn't really matter how hard you photobash. If you don't have an understanding of composition and design, it's going to look like a mess. Creating a story or emotion for what you're trying to achieve is a great way to set a hard stop for your piece. Once you feel like it's done, you can ask yourself if it's evoking the emotion or telling the story that you wanted from the start. This is a lot easier than setting a goal like realism or detail, because you can always add more, and that's a really tough place to get out of. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, please drop them below. It's always cool to hear that people are getting something out of these videos, because I really do enjoy making them, and I just want to create content that helps people. Until then, bye!